Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bad Batch Season 2 reviews here on Star Wars Lads. Today we're talking about Episode 4, Faster. We are going to be diving in full spoilers for the latest episode of the Bad Batch Season 2. Before we do so, though, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe to our channel for continued Star Wars content. Subscribing is the best way for you to show your support for our channel and to show us that you like what we do. So if you want to see more from us, hit that subscribe button. We have so much coming out here in the future with Jedi Survivor and The Mandalorian Season 3. Another trailer just came out yesterday. Sanak posted a reaction on our shorts feed if you want to check that out. There's so much coming out here in the next 3-4 months as we continue to push our channel into the future and add more series, more content. Your support by subscribing is the only way for us to really do that. Comment below, let us know what you thought of this episode as well. We love interacting down in the comment section with all of you. So let's get into episode 4. This episode was our first Sid mission of the year. We talked in the last couple weeks about how it's been nice that these episodes are getting into the main story. We get a full Crosshair episode with Cody. We got, even though it was a Sid mission, it was still related to Dooku and the Separatists, and it connected back to Rampart and the clone disillusionment with the Imperial ideology. And now we are here with Sid owing money to somebody, back to the roots of Bad Batch, if you will. But this was a really fun episode nonetheless. It had a lot of really cool elements. So, like, what were your thoughts on this episode overall?
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I think the biggest thing I can say is that while this is just a Sid episode, there's a Sid episode that feels like okay, there's something that you can build off of here that actually has stakes for group, stakes for every person from it, and an Echo and a Hunter who are off on a different mission and not at all seen. And then someone like an Omega who is always, following the formula, like, we got to do the right thing. We got to help someone. It's like, it worked out here, but be careful now, right? That's what the Doitin Malegi, he's like, yeah, I know Sid. We've run it back before. This is a behavior that she doesn't always reciprocate, right? And the Bad Batch have always been willing to give it because I guess Sid has given them their home. Yeah, I think that was the thing that made me like, be like, wow, that episode, as fun as it was, as meaningless as it could have been, it ended on a strong note that made you think about like, okay, what could happen next in episode 5, or is this a payoff in the mid-season episodes that are batched up in 2, or maybe is it something for an end of season? Just for as far as what the actual episode was about, it's riot racing, which is like seems like skiff racing and pod racing kind of mixed together with blasters and whatnot. That was fun. I think the animation really, you can see like when it's like shaking in the tunnels and all that, the lights flashing. I love that when Tech was actually flying, we had techno music at some scenes, which was actually kind of a banger. So I actually enjoyed a lot of that. I felt like the animation really wasn't stretching here, but you get to like really see the stylistic stuff that you can do with this more puppet-esque uh, design that we've been following since 2008. I love Teo. I believe someone said online that he's been voiced by Ben Schwartz, and then Malagi's by Ernie Hudson, which is that's like a really cool like two actors. Teo was hilarious. I would say this is the Bad Batch episode that I laughed in the most, which I was surprised to see, and it wasn't just like laughed in spite of it. I laughed because there were some genuinely fun and shocking things that happened. But that ending really, really nailed it. Of how season 2 feels like even these filler episodes, there's episodes that you can kind of skip. They do have some substance at the end there that you're ready for the next thing or what could pay off from here.
Yeah, I completely agree about the comedy. Like, this was probably the thing I took out of this episode the most, was how funny it was, just from everything with Teo to the way Wrecker and Tech are interacting with all of the underworld people here, the way Omega is standing up for herself and the group again. That gets a little repetitive, but it played off for laughs. The way Sid also is involved. For me, the thing I laughed at the most were the little asides that the announcers were giving, especially when Tech was racing. They introduced the whole lineup, and they're like, Tech, does anybody know who this is? And I thought that was a really funny little line. And then they do it again at the end. This one had just a lot of clever little humor. We're going to have a few that are not going to progress the narrative. And this one doesn't really progress the narrative, but it does some nice things for the characters, as you kind of hinted at. And I do like that Sid is being built up to be a bit more seedy than, we've thought. She is seedy when we first meet her. We kind of grow to trust her a bit. And the way this ends, they might be setting us up for an arc here with her, and maybe the one that kind of pushes us away from her finally. I don't know if I really see that ever happening. Visually, this was a really cool episode for all of the racing type of iconography that's used. A lot of it is really, really neat. George would love this episode. Like if he was involved making this episode, he would probably say that this is his favorite one. I mean, this is just like typical bare bones what all of George Lucas's inspirations are coming from. Like this is George's racing heart, and this is I really enjoyed it. A nice little homage to pod racing. And I would have loved to have Riot Racing be a video game. Maybe they'll launch like a mobile app or something. Probably will suck if they do a mobile app, but I mean that would have been a really cool game. Like Racer Revenge was my thing back on the PS2, and I know Racer before it on N64. So anyway, this was really sweet. But let's talk about a couple of characters, specifically the batch here, because we don't get the whole batch, but we get Omega, Tech, and Wrecker. And we talked about through these first four episodes that Tech seems to be one of the main focuses of this season because Tech and Echo were kind of sidelined last season. We got Wrecker with his inhibitor chip acting up, and there's kind of an arc there. Him and his relationship evolving with Omega, and of course, Hunter being the one that is the most normal, per se. He is the one that is kind of our lead protagonist, with Omega sharing a bond there, like a father daughter bond, where Wrecker and Omega are like older brother, younger sister type of thing, and of course Crosshair as the antagonist. But Echo, who we already had a lot of character development, goes to the side. Probably we don't notice it as much because we already know him quite well. But Tech was always the one that was just kind of the guy who solves the problems right away. And it's nice to see a bunch of different sides of Tech here. Cynic, what were some of your thoughts on the way the batch were used in this episode, but also the way we're seeing Tech's narrative progress here through this season?
Yeah, I think that is the nature of these ensemble shows, especially a kids ensemble show. You're not going to get really in depth with a lot of these characters. It's not an adult show. We have 40 to 50 minutes, and you can work with them and put them aside and have these blocks. A lot of times they're always running together from place to place. And that is what a lot of season one of The Bad Batch felt like. Even when they had characters doing their sides, someone would be in the quite literal background of things. Echo, we kind of were leaning on a lot of his characterization from before when he was an ARC trooper, and then in the Bad Batch arc. But Tech, yeah, Tech was laid to the wayside. It was disheartening because I thought he was the one that was the most stereotyped, and he has a lot of fun lines, but he wasn't changing. Here, I think we are seeing it a little bit more in the season. I liked his stuff in the first episode, first two episodes where he is with the Serenian and helps him with the data core and learns a little bit more about his biases. Here, we just got to see Tech be cool. I think that was fun. He doesn't always have to be like the nerdy guy that you make fun of. He knows when to. He's pretty self confident. I think that was a big thing I always kind of skipped by, and now I'm like, I understand why. Like he's willing to listen. He's willing to do what it takes, and he's willing to take risks. Like that whole final segment of the race, he's like, I have to do it because that's what we need to do, and it's what we signed up for and all. And his dynamic with Teo was really fun. Just a droid versus a clone, free thinking, able to change on the spot, like and make their own choices. Like Cody said last season, our last episode, versus Teo is like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Oh, that's wrong. You're not putting me together. And he just gets smashed right in a race and by another guy in the pit. I liked how they handled the mix, like you said, of American Graffiti, Speed Racer, even pod racing. It was all nice there. It's really fun, and Tech definitely didn't have a lot of work here, but he definitely shined.
Yeah, he definitely does shine because he is the heart and soul of this episode, and it's his dynamic with Teo that really was part of the comedy of this episode. The thing that makes this episode unique and different. I love their first exchange when he meets Teo because Teo's like, "You think you could process this information this fast during a race?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know anything about the race, so I couldn't tell you that." But this time he gets a little bit more agency, and we see him fighting through the pain in episode 1 and 2 when he's injured. We see him leading missions while Hunter is off with another group. He is a leader. He is someone who likes to make decisions and is able to make logical choices that impact the group in a positive way. I do like seeing his progression as a character here, and I think we'll get to see more. And if I had to guess, I think next episode we might see more Echo because those two are off on their mission. It's probably going to be what next episode's about, but that's a little hint towards what we might be talking about in our predictions and speculation. on Friday. Thank you so much for watching this review of The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 4, Faster. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button down below and subscribe to our channel for continued Star Wars content. Like I said at the beginning of the video, there's so much Star Wars coming out in the next 4 months. You're going to want to stick around with our channel for all of it. And subscribing is the best way to show your support. We want to give you guys more stuff, bigger stuff, better stuff. But the best way for you guys to show that you want all that and to allow us to be able to do it by supporting the channel is to subscribe. Also, if you haven't yet, comment below. Let us know what you thought of Faster. This was an interesting episode, and I think there are going to be a lot of contrary opinions on this one because of its step away from the main narrative. Stay tuned for the rest of our content this week. Like I mentioned, we have prediction speculation coming out on Friday. If you haven't checked out our review of Revan, the Legends novel, we posted it in our latest episode of Legends Book Club that came out on Tuesday. Make sure you check that video out as well. And stay tuned on Monday for our next tier list. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.